And this is a standalone expansion to the original game Circle the Wagons, and this can be played on its own or combined with that original game. And when you do combine it, you have two different ways that you can play it. You can either just shuffle all the cards together, and since you're going to have twice as many cards, you're just going to be drawing half of them in order to set up a regular game. But this is going to allow more variety in that game since you do have twice as many cards that could be involved. The other variant is to do the exact same thing. You're going to be shuffling all the cards together, but then you're going to be splitting it into two decks, and you're going to be playing the game over 2 rounds. And if you're not familiar with this game, I can just go ahead and show you how it plays because the publisher was kind enough to send me a copy here. And like all the other Button Shy games, this is a game that's going to be doing quite a lot with very few cards, and all these cards just fit into a nice little wallet-sized package that makes it very portable and easy to take around with you. And Circle the Wagons is made up of 18 double-sided cards. On one side, you're going to have some sort of objective, and on the other side, you're going to have a bunch of different territories represented by these different colors, and then different icons randomized across those territories. The neat thing here is that when you set up the game, you just shuffle the cards, and then the first 3 that you draw, you're going to be putting on their objective side, which is going to add some unique objectives from game to game. And then for all the remaining cards, you don't worry about the objectives on the other side. You're just going to be using them for their territories. This is a game that can be played both solo or as a 2-player game, and for this run through, I'm going to be showing you the 2-player mode. The way the game works is that players are going to be taking turns drafting cards from the outer circle here, trying to use those cards in order to achieve these 3 different objectives. Whichever player goes first, the opposing player gets to decide which card they need to start with. So let's say my opponent told me to start with this card. This gap here now represents the starting location for the next card that needs to be drafted, and you can draft any card in the circle, but any cards that you skip over automatically go to your opponent. Since my opponent told me to pick up this card, then they would likely want this next card, so they're just going to go ahead and draft that one. This means that the draft would now come back to me, but before I draft my next card, it's important for me to understand the different objectives that I'm trying to accomplish here. The first one is the frozen assets, which allows the player with the largest group of snow terrain to choose a symbol that's going to be scoring for each of the players. This means that not only do I really want this card because it has a lot of snow on it, but I also want to try and get the most of a particular icon so that I'm not giving as many points to my opponent. The next objective is the Ghost Town, which allows us to score points per unique symbol in our largest group of desert terrain, and depending on the amount you have, you're going to get a different amount of victory points. Then the final objective is the Snow Caps, which gives you 2 points per snow territory in the top of each of the columns. This objective could possibly work very well with this first one if we do play smart. And because the snow is such a big deal in this particular game, I think I'm going to go ahead and skip over these 2 cards in order to draft this one. And anytime you draft a card, you have to place it so that it's either positioned adjacent to another territory, or you can also overlap a territory or even overlap multiple territories. This first card didn't do a whole lot for me, but I think I'm going to leave those icons open just because the icons could possibly score me points for the Frozen Assets objective if I am able to maintain control of the snow territories. But because I skipped both of those 2 cards, my opponent has to take both of these, and they don't have a choice. They have to add it into their town. This isn't terrible for them because they can start building out their desert a little bit more. This other card doesn't do a whole lot for them, but it might help for icons later, so they'll just go ahead and throw that over there. But now it's my opponent's turn to draft a card, and they're making good progress on the desert here, so they're going to want another desert card, and this one actually has 2 desert terrain on it, so they're going to take this one. Now what they're going to do is add it right above this card in order to join those together, and they might hope to get a card later that will be able to join these. But it is nice here because it does also have the snow terrain at the top here, which will score them for the snow caps. Because they skipped over this card, it's going to be going into my tableau, so I get to decide where I want to put that. And I should note that you are allowed to flip these over, which I think I'm going to do here, which is going to allow me to combine these snow terrains together, making that group even bigger. And now the gameplay comes back to me, and I really don't want my opponent to get this card because I think their deserts are big enough. I don't want them to get any bigger, so I'm going to skip over these 2 cards, which does mean I am sacrificing some snow terrain, but I feel like I am pretty far ahead on that, so I'm okay with my opponent getting a few snow cards into their supply. But what I'll do is add this card down here, which is going to create a nice big group of desert for me, each with a different icon, which is exactly what I need to score as much points as possible. But then my opponent is going to be getting these two cards. There's not a whole lot they can do with these other than maybe put them like that to at least get two of those at the top and score for this snow cap here. But now it's their turn, and they're just going to go ahead and draft this next card here, which does allow them to position that over this card, connecting all that desert together. For myself, I'll just go ahead and grab this next card here, which will allow me to score another snow cap, and I'm not too worried about them catching up to me on the frozen assets. But my opponent really wants this card because it's going to allow them to not only score more points in their desert terrain, but it also does earn them a snow cap at the same time. So that means I'll be taking the remaining two, and I can put them anywhere I want. This one doesn't do a whole lot for me. I can combine it with my desert, but I already have that icon in there. Then this one will allow me to score another snow cap if I position it like so. Now that all cards have been drafted, you're going to be going through each of these different objectives and tallying up the total score for each player. And then the player with the highest amount of victory points, which was definitely me, wins the game. But before I wrap up on this one, I'll just show you a few of the other objectives that you could possibly draw in this game. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of variety that use all the different icons and all the different terrains, and the different combinations of these different objectives will change your games drastically. And if you do want to check this one out, I will have it linked in the description down below.